If you asked me 4 months ago, I was going to burn it all down. But I think it's like every entrepreneur has that moment, and then it pivots something into something beautiful. And you just have to go through those moments to be like, okay, yeah, this is a part of creation. Like, this is part of creating what I really want, is like the moment where you're like, burn it all down. I don't want any of this. You're like, okay, but what do I want? And so let's create that.
What does it really take to build $1 million practice, juggle family life, and still have time for yourself? My guest today, Dr. Morgan Plantamura, makes it look easy, but she'll be the first to tell you it wasn't always that way. In this open and honest conversation, we dive into the pivotal moment that changed everything from her, from a personal health scare to the strategies she had to come up with to build a team that shares her same vision. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the demands of entrepreneurship, which I think we all have, this episode's for you. Get ready for some real talk about leadership, success, and finding your why. Let's go. Morgan, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I'll be honest, from the outside looking in, it feels like you have it all figured out. You are growing multiple practices. You're hopefully on pace, what sounds like to do 1 million by the end of this year.
Absolutely.
You're married, about to have a kid.
Yeah.
I got to imagine that hasn't always been true though.
Right.
And I'm curious as to where do you feel like you started to figure things out?
Gosh, that's a great question. I definitely don't have it all figured out. And I think, just being honest, but I think the main thing this past year, I've learned a lot. Actually, 2024, I feel like was a very pivotal year for me. I got pregnant in 2024, and everything in my mind had to shift. The way that I was running the practice, really running like myself into the ground with the practice. Like, yes, I had opened another location and I was on the side, starting the content well, and all of that was like on my shoulders. And I didn't do a very good job of like lifting up and bringing on the right team members to support me in that. So when I got pregnant, I kind of hit I got really sick and my health shifted. And so it put a lot of things into perspective. And now I feel like maybe I do have it all figured out. I mean, I brought on the right team. I have like the best people now in 2025 that are moving us in the direction that I had the vision for, but no one was really kind of on board with me. Not no one. I had some great team members that were, but now it's like my team's like on fire and looks at me differently than not just because a chiropractor and chiropractic is so incredible, but really like a chiropractor, in the shift doing chiropractic work. It's like, oh no, Morgan is the leader of the movement that we are all heading towards, and we have to work together to make this happen. Like, I can't carry everybody on my back, which I feel like I was doing there for about 5 years. And then you get pregnant and you're like, okay, I can't carry anybody on my back anymore. And so it was a really like pivotal, magical moment that shifted, I think, even the trajectory of where my business is headed.
Was it a specific moment? Like, did you just hit a pain point or a pain line where it's like everything needs to change?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned, I got really sick my first trimester, and I had to take 2 weeks off like randomly. So basically one day I was going into the office on Monday morning, and I looked at my husband and he looked at me and he was like, you can't go. Like, there's no way. And I had to call my team and be like, hey, actually I didn't, because I was not okay. My husband had to call my team and be like, hey, Morgan's unfortunately like out. We don't know what's going on right now. So y'all are going to have to step up. And majority of that team is not with me anymore. And so
they're like, I can't.
Yeah, literally. So, I came back after those 2 weeks off, and I was still very ill. And that's when and my team, like every time I've taken a longer stint of time off in the last 5 years, I've come back and like my honeymoon, and then this, like getting pregnant and being sick, I came back and things were not held to the standard at which they're held whenever I was there. And this time around, I was like, okay, well, I'm about to be like out for 3 months at least with a baby. And then who knows what life is going to look like at that point. And I was like, we have to completely restructure everything. Like the team that I let go and that left, we've now replaced with the like most top-notch candidates that really are there to support the vision of Truly and see the bigger vision of Truly and want to be a part of the team with that vision, rather than being like, oh, this is kind of a placeholder job that I'm here for a little bit, but like they don't have the same conviction around chiropractic, around the people we're serving, and around our goals that I had. So when I'm not there, those things didn't happen. And this team is, even today, I was like, hey, y'all, I overbooked myself. I was like, I had meetings all morning, and then I have this podcast interview this afternoon. I was like, can y'all handle the team meeting today? And they were like, yes, go. Like, that's amazing. Good luck on your podcast. Like, so supportive. And that's just not the kind of vibes I've had, unfortunately, in the past. So yeah, I've learned a lot.
Yeah, we'll get into how do you attract talent like that at some point. But before we do, something I learned recently that I thought was great that just I think resonates a lot with what you're talking about. And they said, first you're the cog in the machine, in other words, the employee. Then you are the machine. You're doing everything. And then you own the machine. You figure out how to create a system where it doesn't require you to do everything.
Exactly.
And it feels like you've kind of gone through those stages and figuring out how to now own the machine.
Yeah, that I have been through all of those stages. And now, finally stepping into like the CEO Morgan rather than the machine Morgan that was really doing everything.
And I think that's natural. There's the most classic book on this of all time is E-Myth Revisited. I don't know if you ever read this.
I haven't.
But yeah, he talks about it in the difference between a technician, a manager, and an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And there's all three completely different things. And they're all fine.
Yeah.
And what happens is most people as a technician is that they get into a business and just continue to be the technician and not realizing that like your business will never grow if you continue to live in the technician role.
100%. I feel like that's exactly like the last 2 years we got very stagnant. Like we hit amazing goals and we are serving so many people. And I also say stagnant, and we did grow. We acquired a second location and, but I guess just at like South, like the primary location that I was at. And I feel like it was because I hit this like capacity wall of practice technician versus leadership. And I couldn't do both. Like, I mean, you can do both, but I couldn't do both at the level hourly that I was required to. And also be, newly married and a wife and a friend and a family member and have hobbies and my health also. Like I saw a big shift in my health during the last 2 years. In a negative way, because I was like, okay, well, the practice comes first, because we have these big goals. And when your health gets challenged in a big way, like mine did last year, it does just totally 180. You're like, okay, I can't continue to maintain this doing everything for everybody. You have to delegate and hire amazing team members, that support you in the big vision and all get there together. So
I know how much you talk about vision these days. And I do believe, I think somebody once told me is like the job of a CEO is like chief reminding officer. Like it should be like chief reminding officer. Like this is the vision. This is where we're going. Like that is like one of the biggest jobs. I'm curious though for you though, I can't imagine maybe you have, correct me if I'm wrong. Have you always been like zoomed out, big picture thinker, like looking like where we're going, like always the leader? I don't know. Have you always been like that, or where did that come from?
I definitely, so I feel like it came from my family. Like my dad and my mom are entrepreneurs. And so I was always very inspired by them growing up. So whenever I went into undergrad, it's funny, I feel like doors opened and closed for reasons, but I knew I wanted to be my own boss in some capacity. And I couldn't get into the business school at UT because it's a difficult school to get into. And so I was like, okay, well, what do I want to do every day for the rest of my life? And I was like, oh, chiropractic would be cool. I started seeing a chiropractor in high school. And so I was like, okay, I could run my own business and be my own boss. Like, perfect. And I didn't think twice about anything else. I was just like, I'm going to open my own business. So this is the route I'm going down.
Were you a good student? Did you get good grades?
Yeah. So okay. I did get good grades, but maybe my freshman year of college, I didn't get the grades, the 4.0 GPA that I needed to get into UT's business school. Yeah.
Totally.
I was having a little bit too much fun, but
no such thing.
I mean, I have zero regrets. Like I'm very thankful that I didn't honestly get into the business school at UT. It was meant to be.
Isn't that a country song? I never had too much fun.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Anyways.
College was a blast. It was a blast. And then, so I think I've always been a bigger thinker. Like freshman year of college, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to chiropractic school after this, after I graduate in 4 years, and then 4 years of chiropractic school. And then I'm going to open my own practice. Like, so that's my 10-year plan. And asked my husband,
You had a 10-year plan in college?
Like I feel like I knew.
I didn't even know what I was doing the next day.
Right. Once I made the decision that I was going to chiropractic school, it was done. And then I was like, okay, here's how it's all going to play out. And so, I guess that at that time, 19, I did know and have like a plan and a vision for what my life was going to look like in 10 years. And then, things change and pivot and grow. Your vision expands, and that's what mine did. And whenever I finally got to chiropractic school, my whole world was just like, mine opened, exploded in what chiropractic's capacity for serving the population can be, what kind of practice I could have, going into a family wellness practice and seeing kids and seeing pregnant women and it being fun, because that's not the style of practice I went to in chiropractic school. Like I had an amazing experience, but it wasn't necessarily, it was, a little bit more by the book. And I was like, oh, this is exactly what I want, something fun. And so it's one of my core values is having fun, obviously. Took me back to college days, but
are these personal core values or business core values?
So it bleeds. People always say, like, when I talk about Truly, I say we, and they're like, who's we? Like, who are you doing this with? I'm like, well, it's me, but it's like I don't know, me and Truly are doing this together, and I have so much support around me. And
is Truly like an alter ego in your mind?
I feel like it is.
Okay. Fair.
Like even when I step into the office, I feel like I'm a different person.
Yeah.
A lot more social than I am outside of the office. But yeah, I am a big picture vision. Like my husband and I, since we met, he's also a really big thinker and has big vision. And, when we met, we had crazy goals that we created together. And everybody looks at us like a little like, okay, like we'll see if you do it. And we're like, no, this is what's fun about life, is having like a crazy vision. Like maybe we'll get there. Maybe we won't. Maybe it'll take us longer than we think, but it's fun to have, like, craft the life that you want with somebody and then create it. So, yeah.
Life design.
Yeah.
Most people don't, right? Like most people live by default. Most people just accept what's in front of them as if that is the way that it is and it's always going to be.
Right.
I think it's so important, especially as somebody who owns a business, to realize like you have to think bigger than anybody else within the organization because you have to have a vision that's big enough to fit everybody else inside of it.
Yeah. I think that's so true. I think that it's creating because everybody on your team has goals, they have their own individual goals within the company and within the practice and within whatever we're doing. In order for those goals to happen, truly has to have a huge vision.
Totally.
To support all of everybody's individual goals and visions. And it goes back to like CEO, like lead the chief visionary officer. It's like you do have to remind people where you're headed, even in the moments that, maybe we didn't reach a goal 1 month, or maybe like our conversion number's low or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, this is opportunity. This isn't a negative thing. This is opportunity for us to grow into the next level, because it's not going to be easy to get to a big vision if your like leader is wanting something large, we can set small goals and hit them every month and like high five, but we're here to like serve Austin in a big way. And so we have big things to hit.
I think one of my favorite expressions that I see a lot with the people that I talk to on this show is delusional optimism. I think like most of the people that I talk to have to have some degree of delusional optimism.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that, because I was actually, I'm going into birth that way with very like delusionally optimistic.
It's going to be great.
Literally. I'm like, we're planning a home birth. And so we are, everybody has their thoughts around birth. And I had a prenatal appointment with my midwife this morning, and I was just like, yeah, I'm so excited. Like, this is going to be great. And I was like, maybe I'm going into it a little naive, but like, I really think this, like, I'm going to love this. Like, this is going to be the best experience of my life. And they're like, we love that you have that attitude. We think that's awesome. But I know it's going to be a challenge, but I'm like, that challenge will unlock a new level of me that I'm like excited to experience. But I was totally that person this morning, like, just like, yeah, very delusionally optimistic about the experience that we're headed into in literally like 3 months. So
I hope you're right.
Yeah, I do too.
Something I definitely wanted to tap into you with was that, I mean, we've touched on it a few times, is that aspect of leadership. And I know that, I don't know if there's an exact moment, but I know that you've made a shift from micromanaging to actually learning how to lead. What did that moment look like? And I guess what could we teach others?
Absolutely. I think it's interesting. I feel like the moment happened for me year 1 in practice. I've just been on a long journey since then, trying to figure out what my leadership looks like as my team has grown. And I've taken on more personalities and more responsibility. But I always knew from day one I didn't want to work alone. And that's why I think maybe I've always said truly as we, like, it's never been about me. It's been about the team that I knew I wanted to build. So, day one, I brought on a CA, and some practices don't do that. Overhead low, all of that. I was like, no, I want somebody with me in here. And then year 1, I hired my first associate doc. And that before we really were ready for it. And I had just had an amazing opportunity, and I jumped on it, and I brought her on the team, and it was an incredible experience. But I think every time I've brought somebody new in, I've had to, one, find mentors to support. I'd say get a mentor who's done whatever it is that you want to do already, and grow your leadership. Because leadership is such a big word. And a lot of people talk about it. They're like, yeah, leadership, like you just need to, have a vision and your team's going to get on board and be enthusiastic. I'm like, well, I have all those things and my team's not on board. So what am I doing wrong? And I think it is just being like open to challenging yourself and like what you're bringing into your team dynamic and how really you want to like show up for your team and how do you want them to talk about you? Do they love working for you? Do they not love working for you? And I've had people for sure who haven't loved working for me, but it's a learning opportunity. Okay, well, why? And so like a lot of self-reflection has happened over the last 5 years. I don't know if I answered your question at all, but I think it happened year one when I brought on my first team member. And then it's just evolved since then based off of the experiences I've had with the team that I've had over the last 5 years, wanting to be better moving forward.
Yeah, in my experience, I guess it's been a big part of it has been understanding that it's your job to also hold the standard.
Yeah.
Like the leader of a business, in my opinion, is they should always have the highest standard. And if they don't, then maybe they shouldn't be the leader.
Yeah.
Because like I think a most easy example for most people to think about when they think about this is like Elon Musk. The amount of time and energy and effort he puts into building his businesses is obscene.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's working 200-hour weeks.
Exactly.
And then that puts him in a position to then ask his employees to do the same. Exactly.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think it is. It's holding a standard. And like I mentioned, the lessons I've learned is when the standard isn't held when you're not there. And that's whenever I've been challenged at, okay, well, is this actually leadership? Like it should happen no matter if I'm in office or not, because it's the truly standard. It's what we are all trained, taught, and and continue to meet about on a weekly basis. And then the second the leader steps out. So one thing I guess to that point, one thing I've learned is to build some leaders under me too, and make sure that I'm uplifting my team to take their own responsibility for maintaining the standard of a team meeting, maintaining the standard of a follow-up schedule with new patients, maintaining our conversion rate and how we're communicating with our people, how we're serving them, what kind of clinical results are we getting. Those things shouldn't change if I'm not in office for 2 weeks.
I think the word I want to tie to that is like culture, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a buzzy word, right? Like, what does that mean? Culture. The best way I can describe it, I guess, in my experience, again, has been that if you understand branding, branding is just like an association, what people think about your business from the outside. In my opinion, culture is what your employees think about your business from the inside.
Yeah.
And how do you cultivate something like that, right? Like, I think most practitioners would agree, right? Like, when you're not there, as the expression goes, when the cat's away, the mice will play. Is like, how do you maintain a standard, right? Like, how do you create a culture where it is the norm to do things at a high level?
Yeah, you'd think it wouldn't be that challenging. I think especially in the field that we're in with service, like it's, any health professional, health entrepreneur, we aren't there for each other. Like we are, but like our purpose is to serve our community. And so that level of culture, it's like the standard is there to, like, whatever we are doing for our like the standard of care for our community and our practice members should be the standard of care for each other. And like, if we're not going to talk to our practice member this way, then we shouldn't be talking to each other this way either. We can have challenging, difficult conversations. But that doesn't mean that we lose sight of the service that we're in, if that makes sense. So I think it is creating that. And I think something I've learned will do more in the future is I have a little bit more of a rigorous hiring process now than I have in the past. So my standard is higher. My standard has grown. And I think that also makes a difference in culture.
How do you attract high-level talent? How does somebody do that?
Yeah, it's my office manager just brought this up the other day because we're in the process of potentially hiring somebody right now for our CA role, so front desk. And I actually had this past 3 months, we have 3 people who moved to Austin to work for Truly, and
Wow.
which is incredible.
Why?
Exactly. So why did they want to move to Austin for Truly, specifically for the job? How did I attract those people? And it is having that big vision. Like my most recent doc who's coming, he's moving his family from San Diego. He's lived in Southern California his whole life, and Austin has been on his radar. So it wasn't, totally out of the question, but it was the vision I have for the next 5 years of Truly that really was like, oh, okay, it's worth the move. I want to be on this boat, on this ship, going to that destination with you. And that has been, night and day. What I see the difference of with the team that I have right now is because they are all in. They're bought into the vision before they've even experienced it. And if I didn't have that, if I didn't have, the next 5 years of Truly mapped out, they wouldn't have come here. You know what I mean? My other doc, she'd been following me since chiropractic school. So been following Truly's journey since chiropractic school, saw we were hiring, and she was like, oh, I'm going to jump on this. Like, I've been looking at this practice from afar for so long, and this is the type of practice I want to be in. I've also learned, though, you can see something from afar and think you want that, and you don't. We are a high-level, fast-paced family practice, and so the standards, again, are higher. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm a lot more social in the office than outside of the office because we're interacting with so many people all the time, and I love that. But not every single one of my previous docs has. And again, from maybe the outside looking in, they're like, this is the kind of practice I want to be in. But once you actually step into it and I think are immersed in it, does your even personality type have the capacity to interact with that amount of people every day? Some people don't. So I've learned that as well. Like, you can think you want something, but do you actually want it? So I've narrowed down a few more of those interview opportunities with my new hires, doctor hires, to make sure that is something they do want, because it has been a challenge previously in the past.
Well, people want to be associated with winners.
Yeah.
Think Nike, think Tesla, think SpaceX, think, right? Like, people want to be associated with organizations or companies or businesses that are winning, that are doing cool things.
Absolutely.
And so what do you like a personality test? Like, how do you figure this out?
We don't do a personality test. We have done DISC assessments in the past. It hasn't done much for me personally. But
these working interviews?
Yeah, working interviews, way deeper conversations, adjustments. So I'll actually have them adjust our entire team and my whole family. Like, so my sister, like my sister, her kids, and get a like read on how they interact with kids, how they interact with our whole team, like how their adjustments are. Because I've actually, again, like I've learned a lot. I've actually hired without receiving an adjustment from somebody, and that is not the right decision. If you're probably any practitioner, you want to know where they're at so you can best support them. And that's honestly on me. Like that situation was on me, but
talk about stressful for a practitioner.
Yeah, but this
time, adjust my entire family.
Yeah, seriously, especially I think for some who've come right out of school.
Totally.
But I'll make every single intern, like if you're a chiropractic student and come to our office, like I will make you adjust me, because so many chiropractors are coming out of school not knowing what to do. And you're going to have shaky hands. That's fine. But I mean, my more established doctors shouldn't have shaky hands, but my, students, that's okay. But like getting your hands on a doc and then getting feedback is so helpful for your future. And I know that I put a lot of work into it whenever I was in school. So again, my standard is like, you better be able to adjust, because you're going to be adjusting alongside me, and we don't want a difference. Like we want it to be top tier.
This is giving me flashbacks of, most people probably don't know this about me. So I used to be an occupational therapist.
Oh, amazing.
I don't practice anymore, but fresh out of school, I knew I wanted to get into hand therapy specifically. And my very first interview was at a hand therapy clinic, and part of the interview was to create a splint. Mm-hmm. And prior to that, I'd maybe done 2 splints, right, in college. And talk about stressful when you're like, your interview is like, okay, don't mess this splint up, because otherwise you're probably not getting this job.
Right.
It's like the same thing with chiropractic, I'm sure. Is like,
it is. And it's funny though, because it's not always that you're not going to get the job. It's just like, okay, they need support. Like, and then can you take feedback? Can you take constructive criticism and not get offended?
Totally.
And not get your feelings hurt and things like that. So
let's talk about signature experiences. Mm-hmm. I've heard you talk about this on another podcast, which actually friend of ours, Zach.
Yeah.
Do you know Zach and Morgan?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. They're good friends with my girlfriend.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Actually, I think they're traveling somewhere together soon.
Oh.
Where are they going? Vegas?
Amazing.
Phoenix?
Are they going to Parker Seminars?
No, just for fun.
Oh,
but anyways, I digress. Nobody cares that's listening. Sorry about that. But I wanted to talk about, signature experiences. Because like I was saying, I've heard you talk about on other shows about how, and this is so true, like this is business, this is marketing 101, is the concept of you're not just selling a product or a service, right? You're selling an experience, you're selling a destination, you're selling a transformation, you're 100%. Selling whatever it is somebody's hoping to feel and get out of that experience, not what you're actually delivering, which is adjustments or whatever.
Right.
Right. So how do you create that experience for your patients so that they get that sense of feeling as if like, this is where I want to be? Absolutely.
I think that is huge. Just like with like leading a team, leading somebody or a parent, and you're leading their child, their health journey, you have to show them the vision of the future, what it's going to look like at the end of whatever it is that we are recommending. So for us, every time anybody who walks into our office instantly gets a different experience than the typical, because we have a couch, we have oils going, we have music playing, we have rugs down, I don't have shoes on. Like it's a different vibe. There's maybe kids playing tag. So sometimes it can be a little not super relaxing, but depends on what time of day you come. But it's instantly, if it's a mom, they know that we're different. They can see it. They know that our team feels comfortable playing with their kids, watching their kids. Like if they need to do their own thing, get adjusted by themselves, get scanned, like they know instantly that we are going to provide them family care. And then for us, because of the nature of what specifically we do within chiropractic, we could not practice without our insight scans. So we do 3 scans of everybody's nervous system when they come in. And that also allows us to, there's an experience there, but there's also like, we're selling the vision of the future. Like, okay, these scans look crazy. They're exactly in line with whatever it is like your goals are or why you're coming in. 99% of the time, they are just the exact same. And once we clear this out, who's to say that, I mean, based off of our experience, we know, but who's to say that we can't help with X, Y, and Z? And moms get really excited, and our team gets excited. And then obviously then the whole family gets under care, because then the vision happens, and they are, continue with wellness care. But it really is creating an experience where moms don't feel like they have to change who they are to walk into our space. Like, they feel everybody just feels very comfortable. And I think I mentioned that, like, community in the office is very strong. Like, people can feel it. Moms are sitting on the couch talking together. Kids are playing together. Like, people have made, sometimes I'm like, oh, how do y'all know each other? They're like, because our appointments are at the same time here. And like, we've gotten to talk every week. I'm like, oh my gosh, y'all met here. I didn't even realize that. Like, I thought y'all had known each other outside of the office. And so like, people are creating like friendships even in the office, and you can feel that difference when you walk through our doors.
How do you scale that then? Like,
Yeah.
how do you take that from one, how do you take that from one clinic to another? Cause I sometimes it's like what do they call that? Like the fingerprint experience, where like, it's very unique, right? You can create this great experience in one clinic, but then how do you do that in 2 or 3?
Exactly. So that has been my biggest learning experience of the last year, is how to create the truly environment in another location with a different team. We have realized it's a lot harder than you think it is to do that. And also, even with me, how do I create a carbon copy of me? Because I am very convicted in what we are offering in the office. And I'm very confident in what we're offering in the office, and moms feel that. And building up my doctor team to also have that same level of conviction and confidence is something that has to be worked on in order to scale. The experience I've learned is the best way to do it is integrate team. With the North location, the best decision we ever made was, one, we had a CA with us for a year at South, and we kept a team member on at North that was there. The previous was already there before we acquired the space, and it just didn't work out because there's bad habits created, culture, bringing a lot of old culture into what Truly's culture is, and it wasn't quite working. Amazing person. It's just, totally. It's hard. And so best decision we ever made was, we had staff member with us at South for a year, moved North, literally instantly started growing because she was trained under us. And same thing, we had Dr. Ben when I got sick. We were down team at South. We had Dr. Ben helping me. And so he was really immersed in our office for a month, and instantly went back to, that month alone, like the days that he was open at North grew. And then the last month had a record month because he just experienced on a deeper level what it is that Truly culture is. So we had the North team at South 1 shift a week, but to be in office with us like 3 days a week is different. And moving forward, because that's some of the team members that I have that I'm bringing on, goal is to expand. We do want in the next 5 years to open a third location, and I won't do it. I don't know that I'd go the acquisition route again. I'd go more of the partnership route with team who had been under us at South for, at least 2 years. And then, okay, what our culture is. Like, you've been with us, you've grown with us, you know our systems, you know the standard. Now let's go create it. I think it's a lot harder to, like, the systems, we instantly changed all the systems and saw growth, but there is a difference when the experience isn't quite the same.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is that because you feel like acquiring a business is like a root canal versus like a partnering is more like hygiene, just cleaning?
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that's a good analogy. Yeah, I don't know if you get what I'm saying, but
no, whenever you acquire a business, there's a lot of and keep team, which Dr. Ben is absolutely incredible. And that's why we acquired his business, because he is an incredible practitioner, and we have the same exact vision, and we knew we wanted to do it together. But when you have bad habits created, it took a lot longer than I expected to clean out those bad habits. Mm-hmm. And granted, I'm working full time in practice during this whole season. And so this last 2 months is the first time I've actually had some space created in my schedule to be CEO Morgan. And so I couldn't even give North what they needed because I was working full time. And so now I've been able to create that space, which is really exciting, because I can go spend time at North and like support the team there versus kind of doing it from afar and being less involved, just because of time constraints in general. But the partnership opportunity, it's like the habits, there's no bad habits, because they've worked under your main umbrella with you and grown with you, and you can see if it's worth going in on something with them or not over the course of a few years, if you want to do this opportunity with somebody or not.
It sounds like so much of this is rooted in the issues of the speed to feedback, mm-hmm. because like when you're under the same building, obviously this is probably the biggest pullback as to why so many organizations try to get people into an office versus mm-hmm. being able to work remotely.
100%.
Is because I think it comes down, honestly, at its most core level is speed to feedback. Mm-hmm. There was actually a study, somebody will have to fact check me on the exact timeline between this, but it was basically they took like a dog and it's like, you ask it to do something and you give it a treat right away and it learns like quickly.
Yeah.
If you wait like an hour, it takes like 10 times as long for the dog to learn. And then if you wait more than an hour, the dog just doesn't learn at all.
Right.
Not that I'm calling humans dogs, but I think the same principle applies when hiring and creating habits with your team is if you can get feedback mm-hmm. quickly, not obviously in a dick way, but like quick feedback, they're going to learn
so much faster. Yeah.
So much.
100%. And that's the thing is if you're not in space with them, with like with North, like they didn't get any feedback until I reflected at a weekly basis, basically what the numbers, and I'm not there. So I don't know what's happening. Like, okay, there's a lot of trust there. And, it does like being right there, like, hey, we do it this way. Hey, we do it that way. Especially like in a training period, that's like the first 6 weeks is a lot of quick feedback in office by me, by my office manager, by our longstanding team members. So if you're not getting that, then you're a little more confused on what you're supposed to be doing, and then you're not getting the results that you're looking for that we have, because
Totally.
we're not implementing them the same way. So yeah, I wish I would have done day one, just like in South with us for 2 months, like a training period, and then reopened North, but we didn't do that. So that's okay.
Lessons learned.
Yeah.
So what does it take to go from a six-figure chiropractic business to a 7-figure chiropractic business? Like what are the lessons that were learned in the 6-figure to now trying to go to 7 figures?
Team 100%, is I knew like we don't do any insurance. We don't do any modalities. There's no like passive income in the Truly umbrella of our office. So it's like fee for service. So I have to have amazing chiropractors on my team in order to get there, because I can't see 7 figures by myself, physically. So
how many associates does it generally take to get to that number?
I think we could get there with 2.
Wow. 2 and you?
I think we could get there. I mean, well, I think 2 could get there. Just
cool.
2.
Sweet.
We're doing it a little differently because we have obviously more than 2, but our goal is actually to get to, so like, yes, we have our goal with the team that we have right now, which would be 3 plus me, but I'm going to be out most of this time.
Sure.
And that we can get there by the end of this year. Next year, it is for South to get there. So it's really 2 plus me. I'm more of the float, part-time, but 2 full-time. Yeah. And we can definitely do it.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm going to digress for a second here, but so I own a marketing agency. And when I first got into business roughly 5 or 6 years ago, I had this idea in my head that was so broken, it was unbelievable. So I really wanted what this buzz phrase of solopreneurship.
Yeah.
Became very popular.
Right.
And I was like, that sounds cool. Like I can make a bunch of money, have a business, and not have it to deal with like employees or a team or anything like that. Here's the funny thing about marketing agencies. Not possible.
Yeah. That's what you learned quickly.
It's like, yeah, it sounds great, but like the business formula for doing something like that is like very large audience.
Yeah.
And you probably sell a course.
Right.
Which is like, okay, that makes sense, but I'm not selling a course.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm selling a service. I need a team.
Exactly. If you're in any kind of service industry, like you're selling service, you have to have team. And also, to be totally honest, like so a solo entrepreneur might like scale to a level, but they're going to be burnt out. They're going to be lonely, and like maybe they'll have some money, but it won't live forever.
Totally.
Like if you're building something for longevity, you have to have a team. And so I've definitely chose the path of investing in team and lowering profit margins to then scale faster and get us to the big vision that we want to head into. I even learned this in a totally different way with the content wall, which is my like other thing. I try to do it by myself, solopreneur. I was like, oh, this will be my passive income. This will help. And like, I did have the like vision and desire, because I was like, oh, I would have killed for this as a chiropractor starting out, to have something done for me and like help with my marketing. And, but doing it by myself, I realized being in practice full time, trying to lead my team and trying to like help people troubleshoot like their like webinars and emails and stuff. I was like, I can't, what am I thinking? So I brought on a co-founder, and she's a marketer, and she's like, I'm like, why did I ever do this by myself? Like, it's so much more fun to have community around you. I think, but.
So you mentioned the marketing thing. I wanted to touch on that quick.
Yeah.
So you've created a new branch, more or less done for you service. What would you say like are the pillars to creating, I guess, a marketing engine? Like what are the pieces that a clinician would really need to make sure they have established to get consistent leads? So
you have to have the multiple different way. I think there's many different ways in which you get leads in the door. Obviously, some of those being hands-on in your community, networking, being at events, community connections. And then there's the online presence that a lot of people now do want to see. They want to know, obviously this is a very big marketing one-on-one, but know, like, and trust you. And so if they hear about you, they want to go look at you. And a website is a great way to do that, but also social media obviously is a little bit of a deeper way to do that. And then what we've found is most chiropractors aren't educating very well. And so especially in like the peds, nervous system focused chiropractic world, because it's a bigger leap for people to get to. Nervous system is a big buzzword, but a lot of people's concept of the nervous system controlling everything is a little disconnected. And so how do we get mom from like, okay, my child has an ear infection. Why does chiropractic help with this? And that's through education. So that's where the webinar aspect of what we've created with the content comes in, what we did at Truly first, and then obviously now are relaunching to sell to other chiropractors. But if you have a well-educated lead coming in the door, the conversion of that lead is going to be higher. We know that, rather than a cold lead that's probably coming from Google that maybe looked at like a few of your reviews. Which Google's great too. Google, you definitely you want to have all avenues of leads coming through the door, but if you're not educating anybody through anything other than in your office, then you're not really getting a bigger, wider net into the community and making more of a ripple and change, and providing your community ways to communicate what you do without having to communicate it themselves. Because they're like, oh, I know they do these scans, but I don't really, I know my kid doesn't have ear infections anymore, but I don't really understand what happened. It's okay, well, here's our guide. Here's, if you want, because some people, I know I'm analytical. I want to know, I want to learn. And some people do, they want that information. And so I think it is talking to people say it this way too with the disc, it's talking to the 4 different types of personalities. And some people do need more education. And so why not have that as one of your, flywheels of marketing.
Have you ever heard of the 7-11-4?
Uh-uh.
It was a study done by Google, I believe.
Cool.
But essentially what it is that, so really what you're hitting on is how powerful it can be. Really what marketing can do is warm up a potential new patient, client, customer, whatever you want to call them, before they ultimately have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
Because it just makes the conversation so much easier.
Exactly.
And one of the easiest ways to do this is to understand the 7-11-4. So essentially what it is that generally speaking, to get somebody warm and open to having a conversation with you, they need to have consumed 7 hours of information about you. This could be in any form. This could be a blog. This could be a YouTube video. This could be a podcast or like this. 11 different touch points. So just different places or whatever. And then 4 different locations. So it could be one's on Instagram, one's on YouTube, one's at a networking event. Maybe they see you in the community, whatever. But generally when those things are all in place, they are so much more likely to choose to work with you than have none of those things had happened.
Yeah.
Which is why, just generally speaking, what you said of there needs to be multiple touch points and avenues and places, and ideally longer form stuff. You mentioned the webinar thing. That's a great way to get you closer to that 7 hours of of content about whatever it is you do.
Exactly. I think that we're not spending 7 hours in the office with them on day 1, day 2, and a lot of people do have a lot of questions and we want to answer those, but there's also time limit, and we're having the same conversations. And that's where this, really from my end, I was okay, I'm talking about the same stuff, giving the same recommendations, trying to explain the same concept 15 times today. What if we just had something ready for them that my team is hey, send them this. And it's literally, and then they're nurtured in an email campaign. And so that's somebody who's in the office, okay, then they're going to stay because they're going to understand why this happened in a deeper way than our quick table talk conversations. And then 2, for like re-communicating. And then 3, obviously for somebody who's never walked into our office, they're going to get information before they even walk through the door. They're going to have better questions, less questions and better ones. And I think that's great. And they're more likely to be like, okay, yeah, I'm like, why are we taking more time to talk through this? Like, we're ready, you know?
Yeah, I think if we just like rephrased marketing to education, I think people would be like, oh yeah, I get it. I just have to educate people.
Exactly. It's not as, I mean, it is complicated. And that's why I brought on Stephanie, because it's like, I don't, you know, I'm not a marketer, but I understand my community in a deeper way than, because we are different under the chiropractic umbrella. A lot of the marketers we've found or that are like want to help us, the copy is not our brand, it's not our voice, it's not what we're trying to do. And so we've hit walls there. And I know my like little bubble of chiropractic has hit walls when it comes to this, like the typical marketing community, because there's so many amazing like ideas and like the execution's there, but like the education's wrong. What we're doing is different. And so teaming up, me trying to do it by myself, I was like, okay, I'm not a marketer, but I can educate people. And so now like joining forces and having somebody who like can take my words, but make them marketing is helpful.
So a quick hack for the listener, for you. So if you struggle with creating content or coming up with the content ideas, honestly, one of the easiest ways to do this, maybe you've already done this before, but is you literally just put together a list of all the most common questions that you get, whether it's like in the clinic or in the patients, and literally like sit down with somebody and just have a conversation. Have them like ask you those questions and then give the answers that you would give to them. That's your content for the next like month.
Literally. It's not that complicated. We talk about that all the time. I'm like, oh, whenever my team asks questions too, I'm like, oh, we should have recorded this answer, because it like that's.
I record everything now.
We have all of our team meetings, everything, and just like because you can reuse everything in such a great way. Because if one person's asking that question, a million people are asking the same question, and it is. For certain people, for me specifically, it's easier for me to talk about it than it is for me to like write it up in a blog. But I can take the information I'm talking about, run it through AI, and give me a outline of what I said. And then there's content strategies, you know, social media, all of that. Like it's amazing.
I do it all day, every day. I record everything, every video call, every conversation. It's literally like you just record it. And like you said, you put it into an AI and you get summaries, you get action points, it's great. Yeah,
it's so great. It's great for team meetings too.
Yeah.
Because we like talk about a lot of things, but I was finding, it's like I was finding, okay, we had a really great team meeting, but then nothing really like happened from it. And so now we record them and then someone's responsible for getting all the action points, putting them in Asana, tasking them. Like, so now it's okay. You're getting reminders. So it's not all living in your head, because it can be very overwhelming if everything's just like based off of memory.
More like impossible.
It's impossible. Yeah. Everything slips through the cracks, especially when you're trying to scale. Like in a small little team with like a few, whenever you're growing, like year one, we could definitely do that. Everything lived in our head and it was just us two, but not anymore. Like you have to have some organization around that.
I got a round of rapid fire questions.
Yep.
It's whatever the first thing is that comes to mind.
Okay.
What's your best business advice?
I would say reflect and edit quickly. Like make quick decisions and pivot quickly, and try not like don't be afraid to hurt someone's feelings.
Quick to action.
That's the first. Yeah, quick to action.
Best marketing advice.
Talk their language, connect with them, educate them, let them know what you're about. You don't have to lie or sell to them. Just give them the truth.
I like that. What's your favorite part about entrepreneurship?
It's challenging, and I like to be challenged. I think it's like it grows you, it challenges you, it makes you a better person. It's awesome.
When are you the most productive?
when I'm inspired, which I know is kind of cliche, but if I'm inspired by a task at hand or a conversation I'm going to do or something I'm writing, and I know that I'm going to produce for my people or whatever it may be, I'm way more productive than whenever it's a boring task that I don't want to do.
Who is your inspiration?
I would say now, my inspiration was always my dad, and I'm so grateful for him. But now, honestly, my husband, he is so creative, and he's a go-getter, and he's like,
What does he do?
he's a co-founder of a startup. So he's also in entrepreneurship.
Cool.
But he's been working so hard for our family since I've met him the last 5 years. And he just is determined, and he's very inspiring. He doesn't take failure. Like, he's had failures, but like, they're not failures.
Yeah, lessons.
They're lessons. And
Yeah.
he's just like, okay, let's do it again. Let's try again.
Tell me one secret or something most people wouldn't know about you.
I'm only saying this because it came up in our conversation, but my parents are in the funeral industry. So I like grew up running around. I
forgot about that.
I know, in our first call. So I like grew up running around like the casket room and stuff, which is just like.
Did you know?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Like, there's dead bodies in there.
Yeah. The first place we take they're behind a curtain, but like the first place we take everybody is, my husband, like the first stop we did whenever we went to Des Moines, Iowa, was take him to Dunn's funeral home and show him the crematory and have him do the whole tour and like see if it freaks him out or not. So yeah, it's a really random fun fact, secret.
On another day, I want to know everything there is about the business side of the funeral industry.
It's fascinating.
I am. Because I went to a funeral recently. Sadly, Michaela's grandpa passed away, and we went and like I'm horrible, but like my brain immediately is like, what's the revenue here? What's the business plan? Like, because it's so expensive.
It's so expensive. And
I was like, well, how?
I mean, so what my parents did is they found so my grandpa was a funeral director and built a funeral home, the industry in Des Moines, Omaha, and had 6 funeral homes in Omaha, was very successful in that field, but he was, providing the service, funeral director, where my dad and uncle started Pre-Need Systems, which is more of like insurance pre-planning for your funeral. So your family doesn't have to pay out of pocket for all of these funeral expenses, which a lot of families do because you're not pre-planning. And so now they basically provide services to funeral homes all over, the country with pre-planning options to lock in prices, tell people what you want before obviously you pass away. Because people do but it is an interesting, like with our generation, there's some pivoting happening. So my cousin is now like taking over everything. And, the funerals they're just different than what they traditionally have always been. Things are pivoting. People want to be like planted into a tree and, so it's like finding what our generation finds valuable when it comes to funerals. Which is just a whole other random.
My ashes on a mountain, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
more people want to be cremated than buried. And,
yeah.
So there's,
I'm sure.
A little morbid, but.
Anyways.
Sorry.
Like I said, I would love to learn about the business model behind that at some point. But what's your favorite app or resource right now?
I'm pregnant, so I would say something I'm really diving into is I've always been very good at creating boundaries in the office, but it's been a little bit more challenging with this pregnancy because it's just something I'm experiencing. So something that I'm loving right now is an app called Expectful, and it's a pregnancy meditation app. So it just really calms my mind, sets the tone for my day, and helps me just connect to baby before life gets in the way, and before I serve a lot of other moms. So yeah, I would say if you're pregnant, download Expectful.
It's interesting. I guess I didn't think there would be like a difference between meditation and pregnancy meditation, but
yeah, it doesn't have to be, but this app specifically, it guides you through like what you might be experiencing during the week you're in, and like a body scan of that, like connecting with, so you're almost like using a guided meditation to connect with baby. And
oh, I gotcha. Got it.
yeah.
Well, I have one last question.
Please.
Before I ask that question, though, I just want to acknowledge you for tackling all the things. Business, parenthood, wifery, multiple clinics, big vision casting for this year. I have no doubts you'll reach probably many of the goals that you set for this year. And yeah, you're a hustler. I like it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's fun. So why not do it?
Not everybody says that, for the record.
Yeah.
Most people would say that's a nightmare. So the fact that you can use that vocabulary is great.
Yeah.
It's a good sign.
If you asked me 4 months ago, I was going to burn it all down. But I think it's like every entrepreneur has that moment, and then it pivots something into something beautiful. And you just have to go through those moments to be like, okay, yeah, this is a part of creation. Like, this is part of creating what I really want, is like the moment where you're like, burn it all down. I don't want any of this. You're like, okay, but what do I want? And so let's create that. And yeah.
That's why I think it's so important to be able to zoom out, because like it's a literal, it's a lame analogy, but it's a literal roller coaster.
Yeah.
Of like, oh my God, everything's amazing and it's working and it's great. And now it's like, oh my God, this is horrible. This is miserable. This is never going to work. What do I need to do? And then it's like, oh my God, it's like endless, and it never stops. It never stops.
I think that's a point too. I said it on a podcast I was on recently too, with like entrepreneurship, is a lot of people want to be entrepreneurs. You know, they want to start their own business or think they do, but you have to have the big vision and know why you're doing whatever it is you're stepping into. Or in the moment where you're like, burn it all down, you'll walk away. And if it's not something that really is like connected with your vision, your values, you're not going to be successful. You may be short-term successful, but you're not going to have longevity in it, and you're not going to be happy.
Totally.
You're not going to be able to say it's fun.
Yeah. Which is important.
Yeah.
Because like that'll keep you going.
100%.
My last question, it's whatever your best piece of advice is. So if you were to go back to your younger self, or to speak to somebody else that was maybe starting their practice or looking to build a seven-figure clinic at some point in their life, like, what would you tell them? What's the piece of advice you would give to them or your younger self?
Yeah. So I guess to somebody else, my biggest advice would be to build community. I always started with an amazing community around me. And I know we talked about this a little bit earlier with like chiropractors, but I had amazing chiropractors around me in school. I then also hired amazing mentors and still have business coaches and clinical coaches that we work with. And so like, don't stand on an island by yourself and try to like figure it all out. Like, somebody's already doing probably something similar to what you want to do and can help you get there. And it's more fun to do life with community. So I would say to another chiropractor who's maybe starting out, or because it is lonely at the beginning if you're starting an office by yourself. So making sure you have community. To my younger self, I think the main thing would be knowing that there's like, I think in those holes, like there's light at the end of the tunnel, like you're getting to do something you love. I think for me and people in service industries, it can be hard, especially with the 2020 shift of everybody working from home. And, you know, it's like, no, I get to go into office and like serve people all day. Like, that's so fun. But yeah, I think it's just like, it's all worth it. Like, even though in the low points, like it's all worth it. I don't know.
I heard a quote recently, and I think it kind of encapsulates what you're saying. And they said that in your 20s, you think it's about the goal. In your 30s, you think it's about the journey. In your 40s, you realize it's about the company. the people that you do it with. I think that's a lot of truth to that.
There's so much truth to that. It's just more fun to do life with people.